guess it's time for another Speeding Bulletin video report, updating you on what happened in the world of Superman in the week December 6th to December 12th, 2013. A week in which Amy Adams reacted to the Wonder Woman announcement. We got to see a photo of Henry Cavill's screen test for Superman Flyby, and you could win a limited edition Superman Returns 2 CD soundtrack in our new giveaway contest. Keep watching to find out about these stories and more. In movie news, the Detroit Free Press reports that pre-production on the upcoming follow-up to Man of Steel has begun in Detroit, with filming set to begin in February. Michigan Motion Picture Studios in Pontiac will play a key role in what's considered the biggest movie shoot ever to land in the state. When filming starts next year, all 7 of the sound stages will be used. The still untitled Superman Batman movie is expected to occupy the complex through August. Amy Adams participated in a video interview in which she was asked about her interest in the possibility of a love triangle involving Lois Lane, Superman and Wonder Woman in the upcoming movie. She said, "I hope that I can be involved with a woman on screen where we're not in a love triangle. That would be fun, maybe where we team up together and we work as teammates instead of adversaries." HollywoodReporter.com claims that Jason Momoa, best known for his work in HBO's Game of Thrones and the lead role in 2011's Conan the Barbarian, is in talks with Warner Brothers to join the cast of the upcoming Superman Batman movie. It's unclear what role he will play, but there's speculation that the movie's villain could be Doomsday. Watch this space. Superman fan Jeff Frost sent us a couple of new photos and a video of the progress on the reconstruction of the Kent farmhouse for the upcoming Superman Batman movie in Yorkville, Illinois. The Chicago Tribune reports that filming at the location is expected to start in February, although the town of Plano, which doubled as Smallville, isn't expecting a major return to the location from Warner Brothers for the upcoming movie. Disney Hollywood caught up with producer Charles Roven at a special screening at the movie American Hustle this week and asked him for his view on the audience Man of Steel was made for and the difference between DC Comics films and those made by Marvel.
You know, I have to say, I think that Man of Steel really played younger, to a wider audience than, let's say, even though Chris's Dark Knight trilogy was more successful financially, I think that you needed to be a little bit older to appreciate the full aspect of it. And so, in that regard, I would say that Man of Steel played younger than that.
IMDb has announced the top 10 movies for 2013 that were most popular with its users, with Man of Steel coming out on top. These rankings are not based upon critical assessment or box office performance, but the actual page views by more than 160 million unique monthly users at imdb.com. ThinkMcFlyThink.com managed to obtain a still from screen test footage of Henry Cavill trying out for the role of Superman back in 2004 for the never-made Superman Flyby movie. Cavill first wore a prototype red and blue design for the ill-fated relaunch, in which he was reportedly cast by then-director McGee. When the production fell apart and Bryan Singer took over, he opted to go in another direction and made Superman Returns. In an interview about his career and how he copes with criticism, Nicolas Cage also spoke to the UK's Metro about the never-made Superman Lives movie, in which he was cast to play Superman. He said, "It would have been a mind-blowing experience. Did I have concept of how to play the character? Yes, and I can tell you it would have been gutsy." The UK's Mirror posted a quiz in celebration of the 35th anniversary of Superman the movie starring Christopher Reeve. Additionally, they've created an infographic chart asking, "Which Superman character are you?" Head to the mirror.co.uk website to take the 20-question Superman quiz. There's no TV news, so we jump straight into comic book news. And nearly 3 years after its debut, DC Comics announced that it's pushing its New 52 5 years into the future, with writers Jeff Lemire, Keith Giffen, Brian Azzarello and Dan Jurgens to examine how heroes change with the passing of time and technology. The weekly title, The New 52 Future's End, debuts on Free Comic Book Day in May with a free 0 issue, and the first issue of the series will hit shelves and digital storefronts later that month. Superman comic books we reviewed this week included Action Comics number 26, which was reviewed by Michael Bailey, who gave it a 4 out of 5, saying, "This issue was a mixed bag for me." Michael J. Petty reviewed Batman Superman number 6, saying, "I'm sorry, but this story is very ridiculous." and he gave it a 2 out of 5. Smallville Titans Chapter 4, which was reviewed by both Michael J. Petty and Matt Shaw, with Michael giving it a 5 out of 5 while Matt judged it a 4 out of 5. Adventures of Superman Chapter 32 was reviewed by Alyssa Gossage, who said Superman stays true to his nature, always like this, and she gave this issue a 4 out of 5. T.A. Hewitt reviewed Justice League Beyond 2.0 Chapter 8, saying much to enjoy about this issue, and he gave it a 4 out of 5. Earth 2 number 18 was also reviewed by T.A., who gave it a 3 out of 5, saying it's not that the story is bad, it's that there is little apparent plausible way out of this situation. Superman comics available this week from December 11th include Adventures of Superman Chapter 33, digital comic, has been available since December 9th. Justice League number 25, which is available in a variant cover, a digital combo pack, and a black and white variant cover. Justice League 3000 number 1 is also available in a variant cover. Smallville Season 11 Alien number 1 print edition. Superboy number 26. Superman Wonder Woman number 3, which is available in a variant cover, a digital combo pack, and a black and white variant cover. Smallville Alien number 4 digital comic will be available December 13th. Justice League Beyond 2.0 Chapter 9 digital comic will be available December 14th. DC Comics Essentials Action Comics number 1. DC New 52 Villains Omnibus hardcover. Just Imagine Stan Lee Creating the DC Universe hardcover. Superman Action Comics Volume 3 End of Days hardcover. Superman Action Comics Volume 2 Bulletproof trade paperback, and Young Justice Volume 4 Invasion trade paperback. A number of new 52 Superman Action Comics and Justice League stories are available to read in collected print editions, both hardcover and trade paperback. Pick up the trade paperback edition of Action Comics Volume 2 Bulletproof by Grant Morrison for just $10.74. You might also grab the trade paperback of Justice League Volume 1 Origin by Jeff Johns for $12.54. These and other great hardcovers and trade paperback reprints are available from your one-stop Superman shop, the Superman Homepage online store at supermanhomepage.com/shop. In other news, thanks to La La Land Records, the Superman homepage is pleased to be able to give away 3 copies of the limited edition Superman Returns 2 CD soundtrack. To enter the contest, you simply need to answer the following question and fill out the form found on the contest page. According to the La La Land Records website, what is the exact total album time, in minutes and seconds, of the limited edition 2 CD set of the Superman Returns soundtrack? The contest ends on Thursday, January 9th. Visit the Superman homepage now to enter. The results for our 13th annual Shield Awards were announced this week. The 2013 Shield Awards gave you, the fans, the opportunity to voice your opinions about comics with a 2013 cover date, Superman-related TV shows, and Superman merchandise released in 2013. The results have been forwarded onto DC Comics, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, and the various winners. Congratulations to all those people who were involved. Check out the results on the website now. If you missed it, in this week's live radio show, we chatted with special guest Matthew K. Manning about his new book, The Superman Files. You can listen back to what he had to say at supermanhomepage.com/live. That's all the Superman news there was for the week December 6th to December 12th. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Steve Younis from supermanhomepage.com.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Hello everyone, and welcome to another lovely episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V. Thanks for watching. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Kirk Alyn serials from the way back, the long time ago. They came out in the late 40s and early 50s, and they starred Kirk Alyn, and he played Superman. I actually thought he was really good. Why do I bring this up in a time when most people are talking about the new Batman-Superman project, the Batman versus Superman project, and I gotta tell you how much that irks me. If you haven't watched Great Scott before, you'll notice that this is sort of a broken record thing with me. I keep thinking of new ways to come at what I think is an issue. Last night I was at my weekly poker game, and I had a friend there named Paulie who said, hey, they're going to make a reboot of that new Superman movie, and obviously Man of Steel itself was a reboot, so they're not looking to reboot it, although I'm not 100% sure Warner Brothers is completely satisfied, even though it was very successful, and they are moving ahead with a sequel of sorts. Anyway, I said, yes, they're making a sequel, because I think that's what he meant, a sequel. And as I was saying this, someone else at the table said, Batman versus Superman! And the guy who was originally asking said, oh, I love that. Which is just odd, because the whole idea to me of Batman versus Superman is an odd thing anyway. I know they've butted heads in the comics generally on ways to handle situations, and not often in a physical manner. And when they do meet each other in a physical way, someone's either under some sort of a control or has an extra power or something, and usually Superman puts an end to it pretty quickly. There have been times where, under the influence of kryptonite, after he's been in an acid storm, after there was a nuclear explosion that blotted out the sun, and after Green Arrow has hit him with some kryptonite, or Batman has hit him with kryptonite in some other way, that a highly armored, very super trained Batman has been able to hold his own for a while. But usually, even in those circumstances, in the end, Batman is completely overmatched, which is fine. Batman's a human. He should be great at all things human. He should be the highest trained, the highest peak, able to defeat any other human in martial arts and all that. But Superman, especially the Man of Steel Superman, has just beaten an entire army of Kryptonians, and somehow a lot of people still seem to think that this new movie is Batman versus Superman, and that they're going to meet physically, and that Batman's going to be the enemy in the movie that is somehow going to give Superman a run for his money physically. And the Superman we were presented with in Man of Steel just doesn't allow for that, based on what we've seen. What does this have to do with the Kirk Alyn serials? Well, I was watching them with my daughter the other day. Her name is Lexi, and she's 3 years old. And when we watched them, the next day she came to me and she said, I want to watch Dead Superman, which is kind of funny. But I think it's because in one episode, Clark Kent goes to see a scientist who has found this meteorite, and they determine that it's kryptonite, because when they open the box, Clark falls over. And at that point, he looks like, she looked at me and said, he's dead. So she thought he was dead, and she wanted, I guess, I don't know if there's some tenseness in a kid, and they see it, and they want to see how it's going to happen, and he's not dead anymore when he gets up. She said that. But, so that episode, he gets weakened by kryptonite, he falls. The first time he ever saw kryptonite, he asks the doctor to please destroy it. It has to be gotten rid of. It's like, oh no, we have to study it, whatever. So an episode or two later, Clark Kent takes the disguise of a man that's supposed to go in an ambulance with some crooks to go meet some other crooks. Clark Kent knocks that guy out, wraps himself up in bandages, because that's what the guy was supposed to do, and goes in this ambulance. On the way, the guy in the back of the ambulance discovers that Clark is not the guy that he's supposed to be, and he starts having a tussle with him. They start fighting. And then the guy in the front pulls over, and he comes around to the back of the ambulance, and then he starts fighting. So now there's two guys fighting, Superman, and they actually punch him, and Clark, bounces around, and they end up throwing him off a cliff. He rolls all the way down, and he gets up, and he's like, I better catch up with those guys. This looks like a job for Superman. And the idea there being that these guys were able to stun Superman. Because they hit him a little bit. Weird thing there is, it seems like the people creating the serial itself seem to have forgotten who it's about. This was a time when Robin Hood and Lone Ranger and things were all we knew in serials, and that's what we were getting. And even when they did the Batman serials, he's a guy in a bat suit with a cape, so he can fall down an elevator shaft. He can get beat up. He can be in danger in those ways. Superman can't be, but I still think they wanted to keep the tension high, and they wanted to keep kids on the edge of their seats to find out what would happen next. Only it doesn't work when you've established a guy from early childhood that can run super fast, hold his dad's car steady in a tornado, use X-ray vision, take missiles to the chest, get hit with bullets, lift guys and knock them unconscious, stop cars by holding their bumpers, run into fires, have buildings fall on them, bombs explode in his face, and he's fine. And then you turn around and go, well, now, because we need this to happen, we're going to start punching him, and he's going to fall unconscious and be be stunned. It reminds me of Smallville, because in Smallville they would oftentimes, almost weekly, forget their own inconsistencies. They would set up continuities, they would set up missions, they would set up pieces of fragments of a thing that was left by the Kryptonians and then kind of forget about it. They would set up Jason Teagues and his mother and witches and other things, and then later on seemingly forget what happened there. Kryptonite would have one effect on him in one season or 2 seasons. In the beginning, it made his blood boil, his skin would prickle up, he would, be completely weak and fall and very sick, and, boiling blood is a pretty bad thing. And then later on, there would be times where he would have kryptonite, duct taped to his entire body, and he would somehow peel it off, throw it away, and get out of the room that he was stuck in by himself. Then in other episodes, Chloe would have to come in and be a tiny little rock, and he'd be unable to get up, and Chloe would have to come over and throw it away. So I feel like when you're making something, you have to decide what the deal is. Even when Superman first appeared in the comics, he was much weaker than he has been shown in a lot of other ways. He didn't fly. He probably couldn't withstand a nuclear explosion, but he still grabbed planes and threw them out of the air. He still picked up guys like they were nothing. He still took bullets, and he still leapt, distances of cities. So you can't suddenly then go, well, now he can take a punch from a guy, and it might stun him. But they did that in the serial, and they did all their weird inconsistencies with Smallville, and now they're going to say in Man of Steel, the sequel, or at least in that Man of Steel universe, there's going to be a situation where Batman can be versus Superman. So when I watched the serial, I thought it was very good. The opening with Jor-El and the Council and Krypton, they don't have, obviously, the effects capabilities that the makers of Man of Steel or even the Donner films had, but it was much more in-depth than I thought it was going to be. And they're handling the powers pretty well. When he flies, they have to draw him. He's animated. But then they do this with the ambulance, and now they're talking about having Batman being versus Superman in the sequel. And I can't understand how that's even going to be possible. So I really hope they don't go with Batman versus Superman as the title, or even that idea as the plot, other than maybe in the beginning them not trusting one another, and maybe Bruce Wayne working with Lex Luthor, or trying to fix the city and not being sure if they can trust this alien, and then coming to find out in the end that they're both kind of on the same team, or something along those lines. Now, sometimes I've talked to people who think, well, doesn't Superman have powers because he wears that special suit that gives him powers? So some people who aren't well versed in Superman seem to still think that it's the suit that gives Superman his powers, which, if that were the case, it's possible that if he had to be Clark Kent and he wasn't wearing the suit underneath, that maybe 2 guys could beat him up until he went and got his suit. This looks like a job for Superman, and then got his suit on. But that's not the case. Even in the early comics, when he first came, he was from a planet of supermen, so all the people there had superpowers. So when he came here, he had superpowers. Then they revised it, and they made it, they were a planet of regular people like human people, and then when he came here, it was the sun and the gravity and the mass of the earth, and knew that gave him powers. So if that's the case, then that wouldn't be the case either. Remember that old, I believe it or not, I'm walking on air, and the Greatest American Hero series, where he got his suit from aliens, and he misplaced the instruction booklet, so the suit, when he was wearing it, made him bulletproof, made him able to fly. They started making him invisible at times. He didn't know how to control it, though. So in that series, he'd have to cover his face when people were shooting at him, and as long as it hit the sleeves of the costume, they would bounce off. But if he was without the suit, then he had no powers, and that almost seemed like what they were doing in this serial at that moment. But then later on, he's in explosions, he's in other things, and then there's no problem. So knowing the Man of Steel that we set up in Man of Steel, and knowing the Superman that they set up in this serial, there's no way that 2 guys in the back of an ambulance could stun Clark and then throw him over, and have the power and the strength to throw him over a cliff. There's no way that a guy in a bat suit would be able to stun Clark and then take him down, or even if they're going to have Superman win. There isn't really a way that there could even be an impressive contest. And if there is, it just undermines everything that came before. So I don't know what they're going to do. And the idea of them versus each other in kind of a theoretic way, in a way of dealing with crime, in a way they look at the world, that can be kind of understandable. But physically, I could see one, maybe two altercations where Batman comes, hits him, falls down, tries to hit him again and gives up, and then maybe comes back with a plan, and that doesn't work either. I understand he's super smart, but the point is, Clark's a pretty smart guy too, and he's also super powered. The other thing that always makes me laugh is I feel like the only people who have this idea that Batman versus Superman physically is going to be such a great thing to see on screen are people who are either fans of Batman and want him to be able to take out anybody no matter how illogical it sounds, or they're not fans of Superman and they just want to see him beaten by anybody no matter how illogical it sounds, or there's somehow people that are still unsure what the difference is between superpowered and not superpowered. Because if you're superpowered, a non-superpowered individual is not going to be able to take you out with ease. And in Superman's case, at all, I think. You could say Clayface is superpowered, but Batman can use some of his explosions and some of his freezing tanks and things to, freeze Clayface in place and then explode him or trap him or whatever it is. But it's a lot different with a being like Superman, who has already saved the world from an invasion of an outstanding force, and it parallels those guys in the ambulance, two regular guys who are able to beat him up, take him out, and throw him off a cliff. The other thing it sort of reminds me of, and I love Man of Steel, and I know that there are some things just like the mythology up to this point. He's worn some glasses and people didn't know that he was Superman. He also changed his persona and the way he carried himself, and no one really thought that this otherworldly godlike being was a guy wearing glasses that worked at the Daily Planet, so it kind of worked. But even in the new movie Man of Steel, there's a point where, the guy on the boat's like, "Greenhorn, you stupid idiot, get out of the way!" And tackles Clark. And I always think when I see something like that, there are times in the Donner films, there are times in other shows and things where, Clark can get tackled on Smallville and football. But yet a truck hits him at full speed and bounces off his chest. Missiles explode around him and don't move him at all. Nothing can, move him like that. When Ludlow in Man of Steel comes at him and, "Oh, what are you going to do?" "Oh!" He kind of bounces back because Clark's there and he just stands there and he can't be moved. So the implication seems to be that if Clark's paying attention, then he can, not be moved. But if he's not paying attention, then a big fat guy on a boat can tackle him. Does that mean then that if he's not paying attention and he's in the middle of the street, that a car could run him down and kill him or injure him or even move him? I don't. It might be able to knock him down. Maybe he needs to have his center of gravity, or maybe he needs to have his flight powers activated, or his force of will, or whatever it is. But that's another kind of situation where it doesn't make a lot of sense that a regular guy would be able to tackle Clark in that situation or in any situation, any more than it makes sense that this little guy Ludlow in the bar would run at him and it would move him, and it doesn't move him. So I don't know, it's all these little inconsistencies. It's not nearly as bad as a lot of the ones in Smallville. It's not nearly as bad as having two guys beat him up in an ambulance and throw him out of it. But it's kind of like, I envision tackling Superman as like tackling a wall and just smashing into a wall that would just kind of sit there. Or maybe you could move it, but you'd be sore for days and days afterwards and he wouldn't be injured at all. Maybe it's, as I said, because he was surprised, but who knows? I guess every version has its own inconsistencies, but I think based on what we've seen already, the biggest inconsistency, like with two guys punching him in an ambulance and throwing him off a cliff, would be if a guy dressed in a bat suit was able to do anything similar to any great effect. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember, I have Kryptonian repellent bat spray in my pants.